Chronicles of the Grim Reaper, Beyond the City Wall, by Griz Calderon. Miguel had walked these streets all his life, though the people who lived here no longer breathed. The Cemitério dos Prazeres lay beyond Lisbon's old city walls, a place both feared and admired. To a child, it was a strange city made of stone, rows of marble houses with narrow doors and windows. Some had curtains drawn across the glass, as if their residents still valued privacy. Others were bare, revealing walls inside where sealed chambers held the caskets of entire families, stacked side by side. He had heard adults call it the City of the Dead, but to Miguel it looked too alive, too deliberate, to belong entirely to death. Still, every time he walked its cobbled paths, fear moved quietly beside him. It wasn't just the stillness or the shadows, it was the thought of being surrounded by so many who no longer could feel the sun. The first time he came, he clung to his father's hand, eyes lowered, too afraid to look inside the dark glass. He had always wondered why people visited the dead. What comfort could be found among stone and silence? As years passed, the cemetery grew familiar. He stood there as they buried his grandfather, then his grandmother, and later an uncle whose laughter still echoed faintly in his memory. Each time, he felt the same cold ache in his chest, the knowing that they were gone, that he would never see them again, and the not knowing why. Each funeral followed the same rhythm, the slow procession through the gates, the low murmur of prayers, the faint scent of candle wax and wilted flowers. Yet amid it all, something else stirred. Not emptiness, but a kind of awareness, a quiet that felt alive. And each time, unseen, the Reaper was there. He had walked these avenues since the first tomb was built, his presence woven into the stillness. He had seen the boy before, standing beside small coffins and large, clutching a hand to steady himself against the unspoken fear that one day he too would rest behind stone. The Reaper felt that fear and remembered it. Many years later, Miguel returned alone. His mother was gone now, and with her went the last familiar hand he could hold. He walked through the gate, where the path split into narrow streets lined with marble facades. The afternoon sun glinted on the polished doors. Curtains swayed faintly behind glass, like breaths caught in time. He walked slowly, tracing the names carved into the stone, their letters softened by wind and age. He thought of how the world beyond the wall carried on, children laughing, waves crashing against the river's edge, while inside, everything stood still. When he reached his family's tomb, he sat on the stone bench outside. The bells of the Basilica da Estrela drifted through the air, their echoes mingling with the rustle of trees. It was peaceful in a way that felt almost otherworldly. And then the air changed. The sound of the city faded. The warmth of the sun dimmed. The shadows grew longer, stretching gently toward him. From the far end of the avenue, a figure emerged, tall, still, and shrouded in light that seemed both shadow and silver. The Reaper. Miguel felt no fear this time, only recognition, as though the presence before him had always been there, waiting for this moment. The Reaper did not speak. His scythe rested lightly against the ground, its blade gleaming like a crescent of fading light. The words came not through sound, but through feeling, impressions that formed softly in Miguel's mind, like thoughts he had always known but never understood. You have walked these streets since childhood, fearing the stillness around you. Yet these walls were never built to frighten. They were built to comfort. Miguel's breath trembled. Long ago, when the living feared death more than they understood it, the world here was struck by sickness. The city grew ill, and there was no more room to bury the fallen within its churches. So they built this place beyond the city walls, not to cast out the dead, but to give the living space to remember them safely. Miguel pictured the people who had built it, the workers shaping stone under the sun, the mourners carrying caskets up the hill, the families designing tombs like homes, each one built to last forever. They shaped it like a city, the reaper continued, because love does not fade when breath is gone. Here they could visit those they loved and still feel near to them. The streets and doors remind them that memory has an address. Miguel's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, he saw the cemetery for what it truly was. Not a place of endings, but a place of belonging. You feared these streets because you thought they were filled with death, the reaper's thought whispered within him. But they are filled with love that refused to disappear. Every stone here was built by a hand that could not bear to forget. The light around the reaper softened, blending into the golden hues of the setting sun. When your loved ones passed, I was there. I carried them long before they were brought to rest here. You have never walked among the dead, Miguel. You have walked among reminders of life. The presence began to fade, the edges of the figure dissolving into light. But before he vanished entirely, one last feeling reached Miguel's heart, a quiet, tender assurance that wrapped around him like a gentle breeze. Do not fear these walls. They are not boundaries, only markers of love. When your time comes, you will understand that the city beyond this wall and the one within are not so different. The bells tolled again. The air warmed, the world returning to its quiet rhythm. Miguel sat for a long time, watching the sunlight shift across the stone. The shadows moved like waves, touching each name with fleeting light. He rose and began to walk back toward the gate. The cemetery no longer seemed cold or haunted. It breathed with quiet grace, like an old friend finally understood. At the top of the hill, he turned once more. The marble rooftops glowed beneath the fading sky, their crosses etched against the horizon. Beyond the wall, the city lived on, alive with sound and motion. But within, all was still and peaceful. And for the first time in his life, Miguel smiled as he left the city of the dead. The end.